This is a clip from Beyond Classified. You can access the entire episode now at rockfin.com/FKN+. With the UFO disclosure movement, and you mentioned the counterculture movement earlier, what's been happening lately, interestingly enough, is those that we would consider conspiracy theorists used to say that the government is lying to us about the existence of aliens and UFOs. Now it's the belief that they are creating the UFOs, and this is all a psychological operation to bring about a fake alien invasion or some other type of global fakery agenda. Now, this is something that I consider as well. But as far as what we would consider extraterrestrials or even non-human entities, there's never been any proof until now, until these hearings and our own media and government saying that these bodies and things and craft exist. Until then, there has been no physical proof. We've had plenty of abduction experiences where people can provide their personal accounts of what happened, but very little physical evidence. And even now, how long is it going to take for even the public to witness any of that physical evidence? That all being said, with the counterculture movement being the way it is, there's a lot of doubt to whether anything that is being said in the mainstream is even correct about UFOs, and some believe that we indeed are creating a lot of this stuff ourselves, and it is a psychological operation. What do you think about the possibility of that?
Right. So with this hearing, so they released that New York Times article in 2017, and they admitted with the Tic Tac video, and they had all this, and it was like, wow, like disclosure's finally here. And like normal people just didn't seem to care. It was like the paper of record, and nobody cared. And now with these hearings, there's still no evidence. It's a friend told me, it's like my friend's boyfriend's girlfriend saw Ferris Bueller pass out. Like, but nobody saw this happen. Like, so Faber saw it off the Nimitz. So okay, that's an eyewitness. That's one. We can talk about what he saw. But Grush is talking about, well, somebody told me that they saw it, and he's up there testifying to Congress. Now, is he testifying to what he was told? I believe that. He also, I want my cake and eat it too. Like, he's just too polished up there to talk. And it's like, well, you seem like you're going to run for presidential office at some time, and you could be a disinfo agent for how well you speak. And then the third guy, I forget his name, but he didn't see anything himself either. So I find this difficult. If they could do a Project Bluebeam, if they could do any amount of control, I think they're interested in. Now, are these drones? I think some of them are drones, definitely. And I think some of them are definitely, human technology. But you would also think that if it was government technology, that you would test drive some of this stuff in war zones. Like during the Iraqi war, you think you would see some of this stuff, or like in what's happening in Syria or Ukraine. Like, if you have something, why wouldn't you take it out there, take a couple of laps on it and see what it can do in the real world?
Yeah. Well, the other possibilities, even some that I've discussed recently with guests yesterday, is what we're experiencing is more of a metaphysical or even what you would consider paranormal type experience, something that we're interacting with that is of a non-human intelligence, but not necessarily coming from different planets, possibly different dimensions, different spectrums or densities, depending on what our awareness is, that we may be able to interact with some of these non-human intelligences, and some of them may be some sort of trickster or deceptive type of intelligences that are attempting to lead humanity in a certain direction. There's some that believe that at the highest levels of our military-industrial complex and some of these black projects, that the information that has been provided is from a spiritual entity, that the information comes from channeled information from non-human entities, but not necessarily what we would consider traditional extraterrestrials.
I think all that stuff is fascinating. I think, there's more unknown than the mind can know. Some famous saying I just butchered. But we focus so much on like the physical. There's things in dimensions that are going to zoom in and out. I think they do like there's a lot of the Simpsons they talk about predictive programming, but more of just like Hollywood puts it into our consciousness, like the Spider-Verse. Ever since they started doing multiple dimensions like that, and now all the movies are doing, and all the Marvel ones are doing that. I think that's a good way to get, I don't want to say dumb people, but people that either aren't following this or just can't imagine things like that. It puts that in their mind that these things are possible. Then when they start talking about the UFOs being interdimensional, it's like, oh yeah, I saw that in the Spider-Verse. That makes a lot of sense to me. uh, are they channeling? Hey, if something reached out to us and we couldn't see them, and they were like, oh, great ones, please tell us something, and somebody in our government got a hold of it, there's no way they wouldn't exploit that by being like, oh, we're all powerful and we're whoever you're worshiping, and do this for us and send us however type of energy or control or money that you could extract from it. I think some of this, I think, is definitely resources, either human entities or non-human, of trying to do that we're just a zoo and these things are popping up and occasionally picking one of us up. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
You mentioned the lulled reaction from the masses about UFOs, even back in 2017 with the New York Times article, and then now with the congressional hearings where folks are actually saying, yes, that non-human biologics exist, that they had alien bodies and crash retrievals and all this fantastic information, and people are just sitting back like, meh, it doesn't seem to be causing any type of reaction. And I don't know if they were desiring some more different type of reaction from people to probably perpetuate what is going to be the next agenda, the next coming thing, the possible fake alien invasion. I don't know, but I find it interesting the way people are reacting. And I wonder if it's because of everything that happened 2020 and beyond, that people's trust of the government and media has just gone so far off that most people aren't believing what they're hearing and seeing coming from these entities anymore. And that goes back to, are there more people that are aware of this than we are led to believe? Are there more people waking up than we can imagine that are aware of some of the deception?
So I think that's interesting. We're talking about the percentage of people that believe in UFOs. And I think the 2016 election really proved to people, one, the media has its spin, that's fine. But there was pollsters coming out and asking, like, who are you voting for? And there were people who were actively saying they were not voting for one guy. They just wouldn't answer. So then all the media is, talking about the other side of this party is going to win in a landslide. But it's just because they were lying to the polls or not participating. Not to participate. I feel like that's a little bit with UFOs. Everyone recognizes their data is being collected. If you're answering yes to a poll, if you're putting anything, all that stuff's being filed away somewhere. Is it being actively used now? No, but it's in a file somewhere. And it's going to be easier the better the computer technology gets, computing power and everything like this. If we go to a China social credit score, all of your answers that you're going to have to this is going to build a profile and it's going to give you certain accesses. So the more people, I think it was like 54% or something, believed in UFOs or something. It has to be higher than that.
It's so interesting because I've been getting letters and emails and phone calls from friends that I grew up with that aren't necessarily interested in any of this stuff. Called me crazy, probably thought I was insane when I started doing the podcast and talking about some of the things I have. But now are calling me or texting me, sending me letters or emails like, hey, man, you were right about aliens. And now I'm thinking, well, wait, do I have to go back and tell them maybe I wasn't right about aliens? Maybe this is how am I going to explain that this is a psychological operation to these folks? I'm just going to let it slide and be like, you're welcome.
Yeah. So also with this, they're pushing. I feel like Rush was saying, he's like, well, we don't know if they're not from Earth. They could be from another dimension. It's really interesting that he brought up some of the retrieved ships were old, were ancient. I really wish that a lot of these congressmen or senators or whoever it is, that they would crowdsource more of their questions. The one woman, Luna, she put on Twitter, like, hey, give me your questions. I'll pick one of these. But if you ever watch any congressional hearing, there's people on Twitter who are just ripping it apart, like, ask this.